Good morning from the coronavirus infected Hong Kong. Well, we're not so bad. Well, we don't know what we've got. Anyhow, I'm okay. A couple films I want to talk about. There's actually three big films, well, big-ish films opening today. I didn't see one of them because this is really a difficult week for movies. January is the time where studios are dumping stuff, and because January is typically a time where box office dips. People don't go to the cinemas pretty much as much as in other months, probably because of weather and maybe fatigue from holidays, whatever. Um, so this is the time where we get the stuff that they don't really, studios don't really care about. And so we had press screenings this week, and after two of the films, well, one film earlier this week, and then it was okay, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then the second film, I just thought, oh, no, 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 I can't do this because I know the third film's going to be horrible and I have to see that. And so I missed the second film. And that second film was Playing with Fire. I did not see it, but my friends, colleagues who did see it said it is awful. It's basically Kindergarten Cop for firemen, and if that's your thing. Look at bad. I like Kindergarten Cop actually, but I just did not want to see that one. So I'm going to talk about the other two films that I did see this week. First one is Spies in Disguise. It's an animated feature, starring the voice of Will Smith and a lot big cast. Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and Masioka from TV's Heroes, and Rashida Jones, who's Quincy Jones's daughter, and a big cast providing their voices. So this was a Fox film. So when Disney bought Fox last year, they decided to move Fox's titles around, their release dates around, and this was one of them that got moved around. So we had Call of the Wild, which now we're seeing trailers for in the cinema. Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford. It was supposed to open a few weeks ago on Christmas Day. That's been moved out to March 26th. Here in Hong Kong, it'll open March 26th. I don't know about the rest of the world. Probably around the same time. And Spies in Disguise was supposed to open last September, but it's opening now. It opened yesterday in Hong Kong. So this is $100 million animated film. That's quite expensive, actually. Made by the people at Blue Sky Animation. They're the ones who did Ice Age, the Ice Age films, Real Film. The Real Films, what else do they do? I want to say Ferdinand. They did Ferdinand, I think. But they've, basically talking animal films. So in this film, we have Lance Sterling, who's voiced by Will Smith. He is his agency's top spy, and he knows it. Now it's very interesting because in the production notes, they tell us the name of this agency. For the life of me, I don't recall that they ever mentioned it in the movie. I remember they showed the crest, sort of like the CIA crest on the floor. They showed that, but I don't recall that it ever had the name of the organization on it. So I'm not even going to mention the name of the organization because I don't know that it ever came up. But anyhow, so he's his agency's top spy and he knows it. Now things for him start to go very wrong, though, when his latest mission ends in failure and video footage surfaces showing what appears to be him along with the item he was supposed to have taken away from Japanese arms dealer Katsukimura, who's voiced by Masioka. Now he's on the run from the agency's internal security team, led by Marcy, who's Rashida Jones's voice, and Sterling turns to Walter Beckett, who is Tom Holland's voice, and Walter is the agency's young, nerdy scientist. He graduated from MIT at the age of 15. He's got all sorts of kooky inventions, and he asked Walter to help him disappear. Now that sort of happens when Sterling inadvertently drinks one of Walter's experiments, and it turns the dapper spy into a pigeon. Now, while Sterling would like to be unbirded, I guess it's sort of a play on unfriended, so he's unbirded ASAP, it's not quite so simple for Walter. Besides, Walter sees the benefit of having Sterling as a flying rat, at least for the time being, because who's expecting a pigeon to infiltrate the bad guy's lair, let's say. Now, so together they travel the world unwatched to hunt down the evil Killian, played by or voiced by Ben Mendelsohn, who was in Captain Marvel and Exodus, Gods and Kings and Darkest Hour. And Killian has not only framed Sterling, but he's hatching a plot, no pun intended, to destroy Sterling's spy organization. Wow, I'm dry today. Okay, so this film, Spies in Disguise, is targeted squarely at the 5 to 12-year-old demographic. So it's not for parents. And it has very wholesome messages, such as it's okay to be weird, science is cool, fight hatred with kindness, teamwork is better than going it alone, lots of messages like that that kids need to hear, which is great. Now for parents, the film is mercifully short. It clocks in at just over 100 minutes. Now, while it's entertaining enough, it's not very challenging, as the story follows a very well-worn path. I mean, you know within the first 10 minutes what's going to happen. You know, or actually, once he gets turned into a pigeon, you know what's going to happen. So I spent most of the film wondering who the other spies in disguise were. I mean, there's only one spy in disguise, unless you want to figure, unless you say maybe Walter's a spy, I don't know. But definitely there is only one spy in disguise. So it should, you know, the film should have been called Spy in Disguise. Still Spies in Disguise. Okay, you know, it doesn't quite, you know, roll off your tongue as easily as Spies in Disguise, but Spy in Disguise works quite well. So I took my neighbor's kids, who are 9 and 6, to see this film. They loved the film. They were totally engrossed with the story. I was like, I wasn't checking my watch, but I was thinking, okay, you know, it's entertaining enough. They're having a good time. They're not bothering me. So I'm happy. So as a parent, you know, I think, you know, it's you know, parents can handle it. So, you know, it's not so terrible that parents are going to be, you know, looking at their watch every 5 minutes. At least, you know, I wasn't. You know, I thought it was okay. Now, unfortunately, the voice characterizations aren't anything to fly home about. Sorry, that was a pun intended. Now, Smith and Holland are voicing their stereotypical versions of themselves. There was nothing, you know, added to their voices in terms of affectation. We have rap star DJ Khaled. He has a small part playing the agency's sound specialist, codenamed Ears. You know, there's one codenamed Eyes, he's codenamed Ears. And all he does is he grunts monosyllabic comments from time to time. I don't get it. I don't get why he is in movies or why he is a voice actor. Didn't make any sense to me. But I think you know, he must have some deal going with Will Smith, because he's also in Will Smith's new film Bad Boys for Life. So, you know, obviously, you know, they're both musicians. They know each other, and I think maybe this is how he got this gig. But he's not a great voice actor. Now we also have Rachel Brosnahan, who's TV's Mrs. Maisel. She has a brief role at the start of the film. She voices Walter's mother. And we have country music queen Reba McEntire. She voices middle-aged agency director Joy. Now, you know, Reba's done quite a few of these voice roles, so she's got experience. I just didn't get it. You know, she's basically doing her southern twang. I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. But anyhow, so if you've got young films, you could do far worse than this film than taking them to see it. If you don't have kids, though, you can safely give this film a miss and sleep well at night. I mean, it's an okay film. It's not a great film, and the kids are going to like it enough. You know, it's not going to be legendary. It's not going to make $1 gazillion. I don't think it's even going to make, you know, if it's a $100 million animated film, it's got to make $200 million, at least $200 million in the box office. I don't think it's going to have anything close to that. So, which is, you know, why Disney is dumping this film now. You know, it's funny. You know, Fox had a lot of dog films on their calendar over the in the past while. So, and even Call of the Wild looks awful. Call of the Wild looks awful too. So, interesting that I suppose, you know, Disney must have done their due diligence, and they realized that these are pretty awful films. So, you know, it's okay, this film. Not great. All right, Spies in Disguise. The other big film opening today here in Hong Kong, I think it's opened in America and Canada. I think it opened last week in America and Canada. I'm not sure. Is Dolittle. And what I'm going to say about Dolittle is, who could have expected that we'd be missing cats so soon? You know, we're only a few days into the new year, and Dolittle can easily qualify as the worst film of 2020. I hate making comments like that. I love, when not that I love. I mean, it drives me crazy. I should say, when you read stories in papers, trade papers, where in January they'll say the worst film of, I don't know that, but honestly, this film, it really could be. That's how bad this film is. This is Cat's bad. So this new adaptation of the children's classic series of stories, it sees Robert Downey Jr. as the multilingual titular character in his first screen role since Iron Man died. But do comic book characters ever die? Like, I actually was looking him up the other day, and he's rumored to be in another Marvel film. I suppose he'll be in as a flashback, if he is. But we're not done with him yet as Iron Man. But anyhow, so now he's in his first non-Iron Man role in 6 years, actually. Okay, and he co-produced this film. So this is one of his babies. Now, Dolittle begins with some very heavy exposition from the veterinarian's very wise macaw, Polly, who's voiced by Emma Thompson. And she tells us that the good doctor, when he wasn't treating his neurotic menagerie, he was exploring the world along with his wife, Lily. I don't recall that he had a wife. But look, there were 15 books. I didn't read the books. But anyhow, maybe in one of the books he had a wife. Sadly, though, one day Lily went off on her own adventure, an own globe-trotting adventure, and she never came back. And this pushed Dolittle to hide out in his London compound that was gifted to him by Queen Victoria. Now, years later, his reclusive existence is shattered when teenager Tommy Stubbins, who's played by Henry Collett, he was in Dunkirk. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think I remember him in Dunkirk. He's a young fellow. I think he's still a teenager. So Tommy knocks on his door and asks for his help to save a squirrel that he accidentally shot. Now, at the same time, the Queen's niece, cousin, lady in waiting, she's something, I don't know what she was, name of Lady Rose, played by Carmel Laniato. I've never seen her before, but she was cute. She shows up to tell Dolittle that he must cure the Queen, who's played by Jessie Buckley, who we just saw a couple weeks ago in Judy, of a mysterious life-threatening illness, or he'll lose everything. So apparently, the compound is tied to the Queen. She goes, the compound goes. Doesn't seem to make sense, but okay. Now, Dolittle's animal friends, they jump on the opportunity to reconnect the Doctor with his own kind, and together, Dolittle, Polly, we have Chi-Chi, the angsty gorilla, who's voiced by Rami Malek. We have Dab Dab, the overenthusiastic duck, voiced by Octavia Spencer. We have Yoshi, who the polar bear who's always cold. He's voiced by John Cena, who's also in the Fireman movie this week. We have Plimpton, the cynical ostrich, played by Kamal Nanjiani, or voiced by Kamal Nanjiani. We have Jip, the myopic dog, voiced by Tom Holland. So a double week for Tom Holland. Then we have, there's the now healed Kevin the squirrel, who's voiced by Craig Robinson, who was in Dolomite Is My Name, and a whole bunch of other animals, giraffe, fox, a couple of rats, monkeys, octopus. Well, actually, the octopus doesn't go on the trip, but, or squid. They say squid, but look more like an octopus. But anyhow, they embark on this high seas adventure in search of a fruit that will save the Queen's life. Now, Tommy jumps on board at the last minute too, as he sees his future as the Doctor's apprentice. Now, along the way to nowhere that anyone has ever been before, they have to contend with Dolittle's school rival, Dr. Blair Moodfly. It's basically Mudfly with umlauts over the U. Moodfly, played by Michael Sheen, who was about the only good thing in the movie Passengers. And he wants to see the Queen die. And there's King Razuli, played by Antonio Banderas, and the King's tiger, voiced by, the tiger's name is Barry, voiced by Ralph Fiennes, who both have long-standing bones to pick with Dolittle. Now, again, production notes say King Razuli is the king of the pirates. Again, I don't recall hearing somebody say he's the king of the pirates. So it's like, Very weird. Now, with so much talent attached to this film, what could possibly go wrong? Well, as we saw or didn't see with Cats, plenty. The script, for starters, is completely head shaking. I was like screaming at the screen, going, "No, no, no!" Like, why on earth would you want to start a family film on such a down note as having the main character suffer from PTSD due to the death of his wife? I mean, that's like really cheery, and then like he just like recovers like this, like all of a sudden, when he decides, well, when it's decided for him that he's got to go off on this globe-trotting adventure, suddenly he's cured and he's in such a good mood that he can do this little hat flip thing where like he rolls the hat up onto his head, and you can see that from the trailer. I mean, that was like so out of character. It's like, okay, big deal, the actor, he can do it, but it was so out of character, and he's smiling as he's going off on this adventure. He's got PTSD. It just doesn't get cured like this. Okay, it's a kid's movie. You can allow for a little bit of literary flexibility, but why even start there? Don't even start there. And the other problem I had is someone had this brilliant idea. I had so many problems. Someone had this brilliant idea to let the actors riff. Now, I never knew Victorian England had so many jive talkers. You had, Octavia Spencer talking jive, baby. And you had the, Barry the squirrel or whatever, the squirrel, Kevin the squirrel. He was the worst. He was channeling Captain Kirk at one point. Somebody else did, I forget which character it was, did a riff on The Godfather. It's Victorian England. There was no Godfather back then. I mean, it was so incongruous. And, I suppose, maybe, kids aren't going to get all that, but adults get it. It doesn't, it's incongruous. It doesn't work. Now, as much of a mess as this film is, it must have been even worse when it was test screened in front of audiences last April. Word is that it was so unfunny that Chris McKay was brought in to write new material, and director Stephen Gahn, who very strangely, he won an Academy Award for writing, which film did he write? I can't remember. Begins with a T. Can't remember. But he directed Syriana. These were two very serious films. Why the studio would choose him to do a family comedy, animated, no less. Bizarre. So, he had to spend 3 weeks. Supposedly there was another director brought in to help him, and they spent 3 weeks reshooting scenes to make it funnier. Well, the finished product seems that it was all for naught, because the film's pace, it zigzags from frenetic to moribund, back to frenetic, back to more. I mean, there's times where it's like deadly slow, and there's times where it's so fast because it's been edited to pieces. There's the scenes, the whole second act actually, the scenes with Banderas, most of them were clearly left on the cutting room floor because he changes his attitude in a frame. I mean, it was ridiculous, and that makes and it just made no sense at all. But at least it was sort of interesting. I mean, the bit with Barry the tiger was a little bit over the top, but at least it was mildly more interesting than the final act, which lasted maybe 10 minutes tops, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, and it involved Dolittle pulling half of Victorian England's steel output from a dragon's butt. Seriously. I mean, then there were butt jokes and all this sort of stuff. Horrible stuff. Now, this film had a whopping $175 million budget. There's no way that Universal is going to make anything close to that back. They're certain to take a financial hit on this. And, they were hoping that this would become the next tentpole franchise for them. But instead, it's going to follow the path of their Dark Universe franchise into the abyss, hopefully never to be seen again. Look at that, the sun just came out. Lovely. So do yourself a favor. Give this steaming pile of ostrich poop a very wide berth. It is a horrible film. Easily, and I'm going to say this, January 24th, easily one of the worst films of, certainly the worst film so far this year, but easily one of the worst films of the year. I predict that in a year's time, this will be amongst the 10 worst films of 2020. And that's not hyperbole. That's not a wild prognostication. That's I think going to be quite reasonable. So horrible. Dolittle, awful, terrible. That's it. Happy Lunar New Year. Starts tomorrow. It starts tomorrow in Hong Kong. It starts tomorrow everywhere. Happy Lunar New Year. Yeah, don't get the coronavirus, which they still haven't named it. Now they're calling it the Wuhan virus. The Wuhan virus. But I don't know that. I think they have to give it a name at some point. Yeah. So be well, be safe, be happy, and watch some good movies if you can. I'm going to watch some movies over the next few days because everything's going to be closed. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. See ya.